Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast for Making Connections, a handbook for effective formal mentoring programs in academia. I am really looking forward to my conversation today with the author of Chapter 10, Preparing the Effective Mentor, Dr. Natasha Michael. Dr. Michael, hello, welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. Michael has an impressive biography. She has her doctoral degree in instructional psychology and technology from the University of Oklahoma. And at the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences Center, she's an assistant professor in the Department of Family and Preventative Medicine, assistant director for faculty development, director for the Oklahoma Center for Mentoring Excellence, and director for multicultural engagement for the College of Medicine. So how you find time for all of those things, that's a separate conversation, but that's really impressive. And I believe strongly that today we're having a conversation with a real expert on this topic. And because within all of that work, you support such a variety of professional development opportunities for faculty and staff. So welcome and hello.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I'm excited to talk about the chapter.
And I am as well, because I think it's such an incredible focus and deep dive on the qualities of mentors and what that takes. And I know within my own work and clients and conversations we've had over particularly the last 2 years, when we've talked about the challenges with the great attrition and the desire to have a diverse workforce and support talent, not everybody makes a great mentor.
That's true.
And so tell me what inspired your research and your work in mentoring and the work that you do at the Center for Mentoring Excellence.
Well, I think that a lot of interest comes from my need to actually have a mentor myself. So years ago, I was in a transition between careers to where I wanted to get into faculty development, working with faculty. And at the time, there was not a direct path to working with faculty unless you were appointed or you knew someone who was in faculty development. So I thought, I really need a mentor who's already within faculty development, who can help me bridge the gap between what I desire and then what's available out there. So I did. I literally went on the internet and I found who was in charge of faculty development for OU and then OU-HSC, which is our health sciences campus. I literally sent an email to who is now my mentor.
Wow.
From my Gmail account, which is very strange that she would answer it from an outside external email address. But at the time she did, and she was very gracious. And I just wanted to have a conversation about what it took to be in faculty development and potentially maybe, I didn't even bring up mentoring, but I knew it was what I needed. She responded by giving me a time of out of her day to speak to me about it. And then she said the one thing we hate to hear, which is if something ever opens up, I'll let you know. I was like, oh my goodness, that's not going to work. So
Right.
it actually did work in my favor though. So about a month and a half later, she emailed me and she said, you know what, something is open and I think you'd be perfect for it. So I went in, I had a conversation with her and I left out of that conversation with a new job. And
Wow.
within that job, because I took the initiative to seek out a mentor, she knew I was interested in mentorship. And that's when I was offered the position to head up mentoring here at HSC.
Wow, that's incredible. And I love that it's such a, for folks who are reading the book, this is such a great setup for chapter 11, which focuses on the self-directed mentee, because that, I mean, what an example of the characteristics of a self-directed mentee who takes the initiative, puts things in motion, but uses that own need and experience to build something bigger for others. How powerful.
Yeah, definitely a story that I tell over and over again because I want people to understand that you can't just dream about it. You have to actually take the initiative to put yourself out there. And it feels extremely uncomfortable to put yourself out there and to hear someone say, no, I can't, or no, thank you. But if you never ask, then you never know. And if I wouldn't have asked in 2016, I wouldn't be sitting here amongst you right now. That started my path to the career that I have. And I know not everyone will have the same experience, but I want them to know there's nothing special about what I did. I didn't have any type of, I didn't offer her any money. I didn't, give her any gifts or anything like that for her to become my mentor. I explained my passion and she could see my passion. She understood that I had the skill set. And from that is when she decided that I could be, a good person for this opportunity.
Wow, that's excellent. So a great example of what we know is coming in chapter 11 on the self-directed mentee. So tell me, what motivated and drove this work you did on really identifying what makes a quality mentor?
I think it's because when we established our program here at OUHSC in 2018, it was a lot of hard work because so many people have different definitions of what a mentor means to them. Oftentimes, what people go back to is what has happened in their life and what has occurred. And that is not always the proper way of being mentored or to be a mentor to someone. So I may have had a mentor who was extremely rough on me, and that was their way of mentoring. And then I came out on the other side and it was great. Unfortunately, the wrong thing to do is to take principles of what you just know and implement them with every mentee that you have. So, my experiences working with mentors here from various backgrounds, from various academic institutions, was to take what I know about mentors and to put it in a workable fashion in which it was easy to do. And those competencies is what they can take from this chapter and implement them at any stage in their career.
Yeah, I love that. I say that often as somebody who does a lot of leadership work. I tell folks, if you don't figure out what's going to make you a great leader, you're going to duplicate behaviors of
Yeah.
leaders you've had in your life, whether they are good or bad.
Yes.
Even behaviors we didn't like, we will end up duplicating because it's what has been modeled. And I think your chapter talks about modeling, right? And how important the behaviors of the mentor are on the mentoring relationship. And that can be underestimated. So can you share a little bit with us about how important it is for mentors to have emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, and what that can really foster in a mentoring relationship?
Yeah, definitely. So, mentors, they tend to be, you're really close with the mentor because they're helping you intimately with your professional and sometimes personal career. And if they don't get to know you and you're not able to connect in an emotional way, it's really hard to convey that communication. So I think emotionally, it's really important for you to understand the personality, one of yourself as a mentor, but also of your mentee. So then you can start to understand some of the nuances of why they do the things that they do, what makes them motivated, what gives them joy. Because I would hate to be in a situation where I mentor someone who hasn't come to that realization that they may be in a path that's not right for them, or there may be some small steps that they can take to really be happy in a career that's perfect for what they're looking for. I have a non-traditional degree within the Health Sciences Center. And traditionally, because I'm not in a medical field, you don't traditionally see a lot of researchers here with my background. But I had mentors who are non-traditional. That was really important for me. I'd like to see myself in someone like, oh, they did what I'm trying to do and they don't have a medical degree, so I can be here. I do belong here. So that's what I think is really important about that emotional intelligence for sure. Now, when it comes to cultural, my background, I am African American, and it was also important for me to see someone, particularly from my beliefs, of someone who looks like me and came from my certain culture that I could identify with, because I didn't have that growing up. And I felt vulnerable that, can I make it because I'm the only one here who's African American? But then my mentor, who is African American, I thought, well, if she can do it, I do belong here. I can see myself in her. And that was important for me as I was a junior professional. As I've grown here as a professional, I've been able to expand my number of mentors, regardless of their racial and gender background, because now I feel more confident that I do belong here. I can get expertise and mentorship from others who can benefit me in a way, even though they don't look the same and have the same path as I do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. I think that, we hear very often, if I can see it, I can be it. When
Yes.
we talk about how representation is important, and I think the point that you just made is so vital, that once you felt a sense of belonging, it allows you to open up the door for who you could be a mentor to, so that belonging really does enable all of us to be more inclusive, and feel more empowered to support across cultures.
Yes, definitely. And I think that all depends on the individual. I had a different type of background where I felt like I wasn't seen because of the color of my skin. So that was really important to me. But that is not the case for all people of African American background. So you have to
Correct.
keep that in mind too, is what I needed, and I knew for myself personally what I needed is not what the same person of the same cultural background may need. It was what I needed to grow and to feel confident to succeed, but it's not what everyone needs. And that's what I try to really keep in mind when I was writing this chapter, is that everybody is an individual. If you could keep to the core competencies of an effective mentor, that's great, but you're going to
Right.
have small little nuances of how you grew up, of the life you've experienced, and that's really what you're going to take from it. You're going to take that and tailor it to your own life and what you need.
Yeah, I think that's right, right? We know that no community, no culture is a monolith, and there's going to be diversity within those communities. And when we think about mentors at different stages in our lives, in our careers, and our goals, we may have different needs for different types of mentors. And so, and then we may not have access to mentors that are like us. And so, but what's in common is the competencies of a mentor, whether you're mentoring someone who you share, have more common with, or less in common with. Being, I think you talk about in a chapter, being open and accepting and building trust are key competencies for a mentor.
Yes, definitely. That trust is something that we all need in any form of relationships that we have. But to me, it's more apparent because you are trusting that this mentor has the competency to take you to the next level. And it's time, right? If I trust and believe that my mentor can take me to the next level and then they don't deliver or I don't deliver, that's time wasted. And, we're only on this earth for a certain period of time. So you don't want to waste your time per se, and trusting and believing, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work out. But you do want to give, a lot of effort into making it work. And then I talk about a little bit about when it's not working.
Right.
I think often people always want to talk about the positivity, but sometimes it's not a good fit, and that's okay too. It's just don't put more time into something that's not working, and really recognize some of the things that are happening for it not to be beneficial for you, so you can take the time to get the right mentor and succeed in a short amount of time.
I think that's like, it's so great because this came up in some previous conversations that, as part of the mentoring relationship, there has to be an expectation that it might not be a right match.
Yes.
And the earlier we have a conversation about if it's not working, the easier it is to transition that mentoring relationship when it's not working. And that's the communication piece. So in your chapter, you talk a lot about effective communication. So share with us why that's so critical for a mentor to have those core sets of communication skills.
I think that there's a lot of things we as humans possess. We want to feel loved. We want to be part of a group. We want to have that acceptance. And that really holds true to a mentoring relationship. You want to feel like your mentor likes you, that they feel like you can succeed, and that you can achieve the goals that you're working on in your relationship. So those communication pieces are so important because it's at the core of what you're going to be doing. If we can't have a conversation If you can understand at some points that I'm struggling and I have a lot of challenges that I need to overcome, there's a barrier to our communication within our relationship. So I put a lot of information there about understanding your own personality, understanding your mentee's personality, some of the values that the mentee may have, and what are your values, and why you need to share that information. If you want to get to know someone, if you want to mentor someone, you have to get to know them beyond just the name and what their interest is and what kind of research they do. You really are utilizing that as a newfound friendship. Yes, you have a higher position as the mentor, but this is a friendly thing where you advise and you're coaching someone, mentoring them to the next level.
Yeah, and you do provide some great frameworks in the chapter for how we have these conversations. I think one of the things that I appreciate about your chapter that you sort of said at the top of our conversation is that it's really practical and you provide some really great guidance down to here are questions to have in your first conversation.
Yes.
That I can't tell you how many mentors I've talked to who said, what do I talk about?
Right.
What do I say? Right. And so providing that guidance, I think, is such an excellent part of your chapter with tons of resources in your appendix. And so I think that's fantastic. And one of the other things that you talk about that I think really speaks to outcomes, because I think you talk about the benefits of mentoring. But one of the things that I noted, because a lot of the chapters in the book talk about mentoring and the benefits, but you also talk about the consequences when it's not an effective relationship. And I'm wondering if we could just kind of underscore, because we mentioned it a little bit, but when a relationship isn't working, when a mentor is not upskilled, what is the potential impact?
Well, that impact can really, it's like a ripple effect, right? It may take hold of one time and then it really has damage throughout generations. Because if I'm a person and I'm in a mentoring relationship and it's not effective for me, imagine as I'm trying to mentor someone else down the line, then I'm going to do the same type of things that I knew that my mentor did and probably not be as effective as well. And then also stopping the potential of that mentee. If you don't have an effective mentor, you could potentially be, wasting that mentee's time, stopping them from grants that they can receive, from accolades that they could achieve, all different types of things that really can affect a person's life. It's not to where it's like a life or death kind of thing, but when you think about what could happen as a result of, it can be damaging to someone's career. Something that could take them 3 years now takes them 6 years because of a waste of time or ineffective mentoring relationship. I was able to, fortunately, with my mentor, accomplish so much that has taken some people 10 years that only took me 5, because I had a mentor who had experienced things and would say, no, Natasha, don't do it that way, do it this way. And if you do it this way, this is going to be a result. I've been down this road before, don't do that, do this. And every single time, as much as I don't want to hear, I told you so, she was right every single time. And so that's the benefit of having an effective mentor versus having an ineffective one.
Yeah. And that's so powerful. And you just hinted to it, and you do hint about it in your chapter. So I'm hoping we have a time here to build on it, because you talk about storytelling as a mentor skill. So talk about that.
I am, and I think a lot of other people really engage in stories and examples of what an actual person experienced. So it's really easy to look at someone who's very successful and say, I want to really be like that person. But what you don't understand is how many trials and tribulations that person had to go through to actually get there. So storytelling is really important for me, because you need to be able to see yourself in aspects of your mentor. So if I see my mentor and see how successful they are, and then they say, this was great, I am very successful, but there's no type of contextual background to that, I would think I should have no problems, that I'm going to get through this with flying colors, and I'm just going to breeze right through. But that's not really the truth of it is. There's a lot of trials and tribulations that go throughout a person's career for them to be successful. And sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay. So storytelling to me is to help you connect more as a human being, to say, if you apply for that grant, you're probably not going to get it the first 2 times. So if you want a grant, a federally funded grant, let's look 3 years out instead of a year, because the first year you're probably not going to get funded. The second year you may get halfway favorable reviews. And then finally on that third year, you could get fully funded. That's
Yeah.
things that were eye-opening to me that my mentor shared with me that I wouldn't have known. And had she not shared it, I might have been frustrated enough to just say, you know what, this isn't the space for me, because I thought it was easy. I thought I wouldn't have any problems. So I think it's really important to be transparent and to share those stories, share the stories, because we are a culture that really identifies with others' experience. And that to me is very true within the mentoring relationship.
Yeah, I think that I have a colleague, Patty Dye, who says the shortest distance between two people is a story.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I think that so often when I talk to people who are mentoring and they're struggling, people want to know your story. It's one of
Yes.
those, you get to talk about yourself, but it's also that self-awareness piece you talked about, that it's important for mentors to be self-aware, and to be vulnerable to share their failures and mistakes.
Yes, definitely. It's not something that everybody loves to talk about, but I think you have to be realistic when you're working with a mentee, because you don't want to give them a false premise that it's something that's going to be a piece of cake. And it very well could be, but to be
Mm.
honest about your journey, and to be honest that if it was easy for you, that's typically not what you would see with someone who's has succeeded as well as I have. Because I love to be real with it, because if you're not, I feel like that sets a person back as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I do, it's just one of those things that I so enjoy about your chapter, because I think even for folks who believe and that they've been successful as a mentor and have had successful outcomes, I think that there are some great insights for people, because even for myself, as somebody who's been a mentor for a very long time and very deep and steep in the mentoring community and scholarship, I know I could always do better and be better. But I also know that when I talk to mentees, I have one particular mentee, she always says, "Up, story time with Tamara. Here we go, a Tamara story. Let's go." She's always prepared for those experiences, and they are what people remember. And I think the vulnerability contributes to the trust you talk about, and
Yes.
that is so necessary in that mentor-mentee relationship. So can we talk a little bit about your actual program,
Sure.
and maybe share a little bit about what's like, I'm a novice mentor, I haven't done it before, or I'm a program coordinator and I have some novice mentors coming in. How much time do we want to spend orienting, training, upskilling mentors?
I really think that really depends on your need. So I think that the first thing that I would do is I would assess the climate within your institution or environment, organization, of what you really are trying to get out of some type of mentoring program. Because my need here at an academic medical institution will be different from those in a 4-year institution or a 2-year institution. So you have to really understand your climate, your mentoring climate of what you're trying to assess and what you're trying to achieve. Once you've done something like that, then you really immerse yourself in the research. You immerse yourself into what has been shown to be effective. And I mentioned a little bit about the effective mentoring competencies. It's just because that's what we do here. That was developed by the National Research Mentoring Network. And so a lot of work that they've done that was federally funded, grounded in peer-reviewed research, has several competencies that that effective mentors will utilize. So you could use something like that. There's a lot of guidance through different textbooks and guidebooks that give you examples of what you can implement in your own organization. So first, examining your climate. And then secondly, make a decision about what program best fits your needs. And then third, I would say is that you tailor it to what you need. So you can utilize something, you can ask for permission to, um, I would say, convey the same type of information at your organization, and then you tailor that to what your specific needs are.
That's great. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because you do talk about in your chapter that climate assessment and using that information. And I think that's so valuable, particularly for people who are just starting to get into mentoring and build a program for the first time and trying to figure out their organizational readiness. And you touch on that. And I think that that's so helpful. So I really am looking forward to folks reading it, because I think that your chapter is so rich and practical at the same time. And it gives us, for me, as I was reading, certainly made me very self-reflective about my own mentor qualities and characteristics and competencies, but also made me thoughtful as a program coordinator, how to support mentors in their own development, so that they are, because I think most folks go into being a mentor with a good intention,
Yes.
and are hopeful, but may not recognize where they might be missing a skill set that really supports and ensures an effective mentoring relationship. So I want to take us to our bonus questions.
Okay.
And I want to know for you, as somebody who was, overseeing mentoring programs in a variety of spaces, what do you think is a must-have for a mentoring relationship or mentoring program?
Well, I talk a lot about communication. So to me, you must be able to communicate effectively. So that's the key to a successful relationship, whether or not it's mentoring, whether or not it's a personal relationship. So to me, a must have is good communication skills.
Ah, that's great. And what's a nice to have?
Um, I would say a nice to have would be cultural competence. Okay, cultural humility, that you're able to identify with different cultures that aren't your own, whether or not that be based on ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, religion, and we can just keep going on down the list.
Right.
That you respect others and that you give the respect of trying to understand more so you can help that mentee. So that's what I would definitely, it's not I would love to put it in the must, but I know that we're changing as a community, as a nation, and that will be a nice to have as we're moving forward.
Yeah, and I know when we get to Lisa Fain's chapter, she's going to talk more about that, because I do, and it's certainly something in my work that we talk about. Particularly, we have seen in the last couple of years a lot more cross-cultural mentoring.
Yeah.
And in those cases, it is so vital, right? Because you said, whether we're in a same cultural or cross-cultural relationship, having a mentor who understands your story, your lived experience is key. And that really is at the heart of cultural competence, right? That ability to understand and accept someone's lived experience, even if it's really different from your own.
Yes.
And have a curiosity about that, right? So I think that's phenomenal. So what can you live without?
Oh, whew, that's a tough one for me. Um, I could live without, oh, this is a tough one. I would say I could live without the assessment. I'm sorry. Don't kill
Oh,
me,
no.
anybody. I would say I could live without the assessment just because you made me choose. So that's the one that I'm not, it's necessary. You have to have it, because if you're not assessing yourself, you don't know if it's
Right.
working. But
Right.
if I have to choose something that I don't want or
Right.
not, I had to do without, I would definitely say it would be the assessment, because I have to choose. However,
Yes.
don't take from that you don't need it. You do need it, but I'm
You
just
do
choosing
need
just
it.
because I have to. Because I'm like, no, I have to keep diversity. I have to keep communication. I have to keep aligning expectations.
Yeah.
So if I have to do one without, I'll do that one.
And maybe it's about, I think it brings up for me, what it brings up is a good point, because so many of the authors throughout the book talk about the importance of evaluation and assessment. I mean, it is a clear and overarching message almost in every chapter, even in yours. However, we have to create something that's manageable, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's going to be different for each person. So for folks in higher ed, where there's a lot more support for collecting data and building that into research, for folks who are in private industry or nonprofit, they may have fewer resources for data collection and compiling that and analyzing it. So it is building an assessment that's manageable.
Right. I would agree 100%. I have a lot of, I work in a team, so we're team-based. So I have a lot of assistance when it comes to the assessment. We've written manuscripts, we've done lots of presentations. So I'm okay with it. It's fine. I've been able to sharpen my skills. We've been able to rethink some of the ways that we've distributed the information and conveyed the information. So it's great. But I think sometimes, though, a lot of the evaluation pieces can be missed because people think it's just about the number. It's just about how satisfied you were. And I think it goes way beyond that. For me, evaluation, the key to it is that you are continually improving your workshops based on the feedback of the people who participated.
Yeah, I think it is. I think one of the things that certainly I see happening in the private sector is program coordinators have a whole other job, right? And they may not have the support and tech resources. And so sometimes it is a pre and post survey.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might be interviews, but it has to be manageable. But I think that is the evaluation has to be there, but it has to be manageable. And I think sometimes people might skip it because it seems so daunting.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. It's the piece that it's very important, but it's the piece that even when you do it, are you actually utilizing it in the correct way? Because we have a lot of surveys sitting around, a lot of data, but we're not doing anything with it. And then the program doesn't change over time. And you're like, well, what are you serving people for? You can't tell me that 100 people took this workshop and nobody said to change anything. That seems very unlikely.
Yeah, I love that. It's the continuous improvement, right? Which is what mentoring in and of itself is about, is that continuous improvement and growing over time and being able to capture that. So that's phenomenal. Well, Natasha, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation and how much I've learned from you and your chapter. I look forward to people reading it as well as listening to us today. And I'm just real excited for the impact it's going to have on folks in their mentoring.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing everyone in our next podcast. Thank you all. And thank you once again, Natasha, Dr. Natasha Michael.
Thank you.